Hello, my name is Louis Almeida. I'm the teacher and student and mentor of the ideas of Spinoza and Gurdjieff. I decided to put my videos, all of them, over 50, that explains the ideas of Spinoza and Gurdjieff on Patreon. You have an opportunity to access this information. There are a few that are free, but if you just contribute, say, $5, it'll give you access to all 50 and more. Now, these videos are packed with ideas of how to begin to learn the ideas of Spinoza and Gurdjieff. Many of my students had had Gurdjieff on the shelf, and some of them attended, say, meetings, were involved with group meetings, and which were helpful, but however, they didn't really fulfill a deeper need that we all have. What is that need? A need of fulfillment, clarity of mind, having a real meaningful life and a purpose, having clarity. Now, these videos explains the ideas of Gurdjieff and Spinoza. Regarding Gurdjieff, I take the book called In Search of the Miraculous, written by Ouspensky. Now, this is, you can see how used it is. I've had several of these, but I only focus on the ideas that relate to Gurdjieff, that relate to human nature. All the other stuff that he talks about, the enneagrams, the octaves, the dancing, I don't really pay attention to because they don't include in what my purpose. And what is my purpose? To learn about oneself, your thinking and your emotions, and of course your feelings and your body. But the focus is our thinking. I know there's most Gurdjieff groups focus on the emotions and relate in relationship to the body. Well, I go a step further than that. That is good, but there is much more. Because one of my students, or several of my students, one of them in particular was with me for 3 years, and now he has his own Patreon. His name is Martin Butler. You may have seen his videos. He was with me for 3 years, and he had Spinoza on the shelf for 10 years. And he was a student of Gurdjieff for over 40 years. He studied Gurdjieff on his own for 20 and then involved in groups for over 20. And he's written about 2 or 3 books. And I'm in one of his books, the first one, of how I guided him to learn about his emotions. Because without emotions, there's no power of understanding. See, knowledge without emotion is abstract. And it's not usable. If you go to page 66 in Search of the Miraculous, Gurdjieff talks about the idea that there's a difference between knowledge and being. Knowledge without being is abstract. It's not usable. It's not functional. It's not operational. And he gives another example of how you can be a doctor or a scientist and may even win the Nobel Peace Prize, but yet you go home and you don't communicate with your wife or your children, and you're more involved in your work. That's highly intellectual. And the emotional center is totally absent of. Because what is an emotion? Love, desire, and all the emotions of pain, hate, anger, envy, ambition, hope, and fear. And there are many. So the other book is called The Ethics. Is the Ethics by Spinoza. Spinoza was a 17th century philosopher, and this book was written over 350 years ago. His books were banned. He was excommunicated by the Jewish community. Why? Because he began to think differently. His ideas were too, he couldn't accept the status quo. He was groomed into become a rabbi because he was a brilliant student. But during his studies, he studies with teachers that delve into the philosophy of Descartes and others. His mind began to think and question: is the Jewish religion or faith real, or is it only a fantasy? And he saw it as a fantasy. It's not real. So the idea that they're the chosen people, ridiculous. The idea that God is a personal God, ridiculous. But one thing that is very challenging, Spinoza brings out the idea that we are determined and that we don't have free will. But you might protest and say, what do you mean by that? My God, of course I have free will. But again, if you look at my videos, study my videos, I have ideas about free will. Now, the idea of my Patreon is an educational process. I mean that it's going to help you grasp Gurdjieff's ideas. And again, I've had many students, and it's amazing, they don't understand what he's talking about, even though you're involved in a group. I'll give you an example. Gurdjieff says, and I said, there's a difference between knowledge and being. What does that mean? What is the being of the individual? What kind of knowledge are you talking about? Another example is the idea of buffers. What are buffers? And what do we need to buffer out the truth about ourselves? It's very difficult or impossible to look at oneself. Why? Because as Gurdjieff says, and I believe this is on page 155 in Search of the Miraculous, that buffers are designed, oh, it's 154, I just remembered it. Buffers are designed to protect you from seeing the truth. And what is the truth? How we are so confused, that we really don't have the confidence that we imagine we do, that we don't really have a purpose. And so we live a life of fear and anxiety and hope. Now, there's more to life than existing. My desire is to attract an individual who wants to tap into their higher level of intelligence. We have a certain level of intelligence, and that intelligence is learning how to exist in life. But that's not enough. That's not good enough. Some of you are very successful in life. You might be well educated. You might be a doctor, a lawyer, a hair designer, or a landscape artist, or architect, whatever. Well, however, inwardly, you're not fulfilled. You find you might have all these material things. You might have money. You might have a fancy car and big house, whatever, but you're still not satisfied. That's why you're always looking for a new car or build a bigger house or more houses, going on vacations, having parties. Why? To escape the truth. You know, there's a comedian called Louis C.K. I know right now today he's kind of ridiculed for his comments, what he said about women, which is not good. That was a stupid thing he did. But back, say, about 5 or 6 years ago, he was on Conan. He's a host on television, and the topic was the cell phone. He said the cell phone is an escape from reality, and sure enough, it is. He says it's very difficult to look at your pain, and we escape from pain. How? The cell phone. In other ways, drinking, narcotics excessively, food, sex, or movies, or shopping, or hoarding money. Okay, all these things is to distract us from the real problem. What is the problem? That we are not really clear. We have doubt, we have fear, and we really have no love within ourselves because we're always wanting pleasure to pleasure ourselves. Everything we want is love, yes. What is the definition of love, according to Spinoza? Love is pleasure accompanied by the idea of an external cause. So love is pleasure accompanied by the idea of something as the cause of it. A new car is pleasurable, love. A good meal, a fancy restaurant, being with friends, having marriage. What a woman does, a young woman does to get married, all the fancy things she must do. If you're in the Jewish community, what a big deal it is. And so marriage is a big deal, a big event for the individuals who are involved. You're lucky if you last within a year or 2 years or 5 years. I was married, and it lasted for about 11 years. my ex-wife decided she was involved in this group, and she said, I had enough. I don't want this group anymore. I want my old friends back. I decided to stay, and I remained another 16 years. So I've been doing this work for over 50 years. I've written several books, as I mentioned. One of them is called, where is it? Right down here somewhere. It's called The Way of Spinoza and Gurdjieff. This book, you might say, well, I don't want to buy a book. You're buying books all the time. Comic books, magazines, you're going to movies, Netflix. It only costs $50 a month, but you're paying for that, for it to what? To be entertained. This is an education to give you a life and go beyond fear. A highly intellectual person is very successful. You might be an engineer, a lawyer, or whatever, but you're afraid of social interaction. Why? Because you're not in touch with your emotions. And what is the emotion? Again, is love and desire. Desire to increase our understanding, and I love when I understand clearly. So this book is about case studies, students, former students and current students, who began to grasp the ideas of Gurdjieff and Spinoza and how it changed their life. Case studies, experiences of how they went about that. So this is an opportunity for you. It's on Amazon.com. You can get it on Kindle also. Now, the other book is my teacher's book. This is my teacher's book. He wrote it 1973 for us students. And now I decided it was so good that I wanted to publish it. And I'll give you an example. Chapter 36, let me see what that is. The need for direct self-approval. So we lack self-approval. We're always looking for approval. Michael Jackson suffered from a lack of approval. He said this, when he's on stage, that's when he feels love. Why? Because as he performs, he gets back a lot of applause. People standing up and applauding him. I love you, Mike. I love you, Michael. Oh, I get all this love. But that love is dependent on people. He didn't have any self-love. When he was alone, he was depressed. Depression. Many famous artists, musicians, Janis Joplin, she was an alcoholic. Most entertainers use painkillers. What is the pain? Emotional pain, feeling doubt and fear. It's amazing. It's a horrible situation. But why do we want to be famous? Because then we get the love that we never had. This material that we're working with, Gurdjieff, In Search of the Miraculous, Spinoza, the ethics, my teacher's book, and my book will help you grasp these ideas that can change your life. And join Patreon, $5, simple thing. But let's give you an example. The need for direct self-approval. The need for direct self-approval is innate in everyone's mind. We're always thinking about it. The adequate attainment of self-approval gives us a sense of inner rightness, of peace, joy, and fulfillment. Isn't that wonderful to have that? Peace, joy, and fulfillment. And freedom. What do you mean by freedom? Freedom from emotional reactions, being overwhelmed by fear, being overwhelmed by anger. Freedom is possible. If we do not come to adequate self-approval directly, then we are compelled to seek it indirectly from others. And that is the problem. We're always looking for approval and love from others because we never were in our environment. The whole society is an educational source of information, and we're guided by that, and we're influenced by that. But these books and what I propose are not new. However, I am able to work, if you're interested, to work with you one-on-one to help you see yourself and see how you can increase your power. Yes, it's fearful to do that. Again, I was involved with my teacher for over 20 years. And after I left him, actually, he's no longer teaching. After I left the small group, he attracted hundreds of students and hundreds of students. And his teacher, my teacher, was involved in a group in Chicago during the 30s or 40s and 50s. And he was the only one that decided to carry this work. My hope, my dream, is that I can get one or two or three or four of you to carry on these fantastic ideas that will change your life. Look at what's happening around the world. You have Ukraine and Russia. You have Israel and Palestine. Conflict. But the conflict really begins at home. An individual who loves war is an angry individual, is a righteous, self-righteous individual. And they want to bestow their ideas on others, want to control others. This problem begins at home. So the idea is, as we begin to have clarity and understanding, and it's possible to improve your understanding, where that's the understanding is where the power is. Again, there's a great difference between collecting information, getting general information. Highly intellectuals love to gather information and data and facts. They love what they call reason and logic. However, their intelligence at a certain level, because without intuition, that intelligence that they're ascribed to is more they call intellectual, has no real power. You might feel superior to those who are less educated, yes. You might have contempt towards them, yes, but you're not fulfilled because that information is only general information. And I want to emphasize something that it's abstract. It's collective, it's collecting knowledge. It's total memory. There's another level of knowledge that includes reason and intuition that helps you live in the present. You embrace the reality of the now. You're able to face problems and work with the problems. I have this quote that is important to me, that I'm able to, my idea is this. I have the capacity to take on problems as they come. I'm overcome my fear. I can overcome my fear and face whatever comes my way. If I don't have the answer, I'll find the answer. So I don't live in fear. Actually, fear left me because when I was a younger man, of course, up to the age of say 60, I lived in fear, and suddenly fear left me. Why? Because I understood it. I woke up one day and felt so much lighter, and I felt, fear. Fear had left you. Left me. Fear. Yes. What happened? My desires began to express themselves, and then I began to learn about myself more and more. I wasn't afraid of what you think of me, what I write, and I write my mistake. I say a lot of mistakes. My words, some of them I make a lot of mistakes, no question. But I don't get caught up in your opinion of me. And I want you to be in that kind of state, not be so concerned, not be so afraid of people's opinion of you. Focus on what you want. All right, I'll see you for now, and hope I hear from you. Make a comment if you desire to. Bye-bye.